Hello, hello, happy Friday, Sarathon Pet Talk. I am Sarah of Expat in Croatia, and this is 5-Question Friday. Every Friday at 5 o'clock Croatia time, I answer 5 questions about Croatia that people have sent in on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, expatincroatia.com, email, my consulting sessions, Cam's consulting sessions, and people who jump out of a bush. Surprise! I have a question. So we have 5 great questions for you today. And before we get started, just a couple of administrative things. So first, this morning, I went to Udruga Domine here in Split to deliver the money that we raised at the bake sale last Saturday. Yay! And they were so happy, and we have had donations coming in for a few weeks, so they were already able to put some of those funds to good use to help out some women who are in some very unsavory situations. So really glad about that. Now, they told me that they are going to let us know once they've used those funds so they can tell us how they were used, and then I'll come and share that with all of you so that you can know what that went to. I do want to call out some fans that came to the bake sale on Saturday. So I met Zuzana, which it was such a treat to finally meet you because we've been corresponding on Instagram for such a long time, and I'm so glad that we finally got a chance to meet. Kelso, who I've met before, he came out. I also met Zoran and his family, so that was really cool to meet you as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I also want to put a big shout out to Dea and Nicolina of Osho Konje, who came out and sang some very beautiful, beautiful tunes from the village, and it like makes my hands stand on end whenever I hear them sing. And they would be so noisy, like it got to one point where it just felt like this giant block party. And every time they would start singing, it's like the entire alley just went silent just so that they could listen to their voices. And just so beautiful. I also want to give a shout out to Emmanuel, who's a fan as well. But now I'm kind of getting to know him a little bit better because he's part of my Foreign Business Owners Association that sponsored the bake sale. But he owns Thai Massage Split, and so he had a couple of masseuses come out and do massages on the street for a donation so that we could raise our money. And I got a massage, and oh man, she like bent me in all different kinds of ways. Oh, but man, I needed it. I needed it so badly. And so I think I'm definitely going to head over there so I can get one that's more than 10 minutes, but wowza. Okay, what else? Monday, I did a little quick interview with HRT. So once that is something that is put on television, I will tell you all about it. So that was really cool. And I think that's it. Is there anything else? Oh, I went to the ballet this week. I saw a ballet called Laurencia. It did not have a plot, but it was a beautiful ballet. So I saw that at H&K Split. We just did a post within the last few days, I think, about the National Theater here in Split, which is such a lovely place to see anything, no matter whether it's an opera, a drama, or ballet. It's such a treat to go see a show there, so I highly recommend it. Okay, let's dig into the questions now. So this first question is actually from Kelso, who I just mentioned came to the bake sale. He sent this to me on email. Do you or your friend that you eat black risotto with have any information on the best places? I've got a friend coming in town and would like to show them. Yes. So just as a reminder, I know I've mentioned this on some previous episodes, but just to set some context for anyone who's new. So every couple of months, me and a buddy of mine, we go and have black risotto someplace. So one time he chooses the restaurant and the next time I choose the restaurant. And we don't ever repeat any places. We just hop around and go to different places because we really, really love black risotto. Black risotto is a Dalmatian dish. It's literally black, or at least it should be. And we'll talk more about the color in a moment. But it's made with cuttlefish and cuttlefish ink. So cuttlefish have an ink sac just like a squid has an ink sac. So that ink is used in the cooking of the black risotto. It's not fishy at all. If it is, that is deeply problematic. But it's just so tasty. So we have these different black risottos and then we judge them on a variety of factors. So one is how much cuttlefish is there in the risotto, because you can't have too little. You need to have a lot of chunks of cuttlefish. How tender is it? how big are the pieces. Like if it's like super small, that is bothersome. Like I want like a big fat piece of cuttlefish and I want a lot of it. Oh, Jeff, I just saw your question. You're asking if it tastes fishy. It does not taste fishy at all. It should never taste fishy. It just has this really rich, I don't know, it's delicious. I'm trying to think of how to describe it, but fishy is not a way that I would describe it at all. The meat of the cuttlefish is just, it's really nice. And it does have a very similar texture to squid, but I would say that it's more akin to like an octopus texture as long as it's really tender, because it can be just, I mean, just melt in your mouth. It should definitely have some cheese in there. I feel like you can tell the quality of the cheese. One, you can taste it, but also just the little bit of stringiness to it when you kind of lift it up, that you can tell it has some cheese incorporated in the base. That's really nice. It needs to be black, like black. Like you should not see any white. That's really important. And also it needs to have like proper arborio risotto rice. Like it should not be made with like regular grain rice either. Sometimes I have seen that. I don't care for that at all. And it should just be thick. You know, it should really hold its shape, you know, on a spoon. So that is another aspect of black risotto that I think is just mandatory. Absolutely mandatory. Okay, so now you know what black risotto is and how you would grade a black risotto. Now I will tell you my favorite places to get black risotto, and then I will tell you Michael's. So my top one of black risotto is Canova Marion here in Split. Excellent. And all the times I've ever been there, they serve it with like a lacy Parmesan crispy thing. That's also really nice. And then you can scoop up the black risotto with the cheesy thing. I enjoy that very much. Boqueria has a great one. Dalmatino has a great one. If you have not been to Dalmatino in Split, I highly recommend it. I believe that it is underrated. I mean, it's a local institution, but it's not in the city center. So if you only hang around the city center, then you would not even know that it's there. So yes, you would have to venture outside the palace. I know how much effort that takes. But it's like a 15-minute bus ride, and it dead ends right into a station that's next to Dalmatino. But it overlooks the sea, and everything they make is delicious, including the black risotto. I also had a really good black risotto in Makarska recently at Restaurant Bora. So the ones that Michael likes is Dalmatino, the one I just mentioned, and then also Tinel. Tinel is in the Varosh in the city center. It's actually right next to Canova Marion. We haven't been to Canova Marion yet together, so I haven't showed him that one, and I feel pretty confident that once he has that one, it's probably going to bump these other ones off the list, but that's just how I feel. I don't know. All right, so that's it on black risotto. Thank you so much, Kelso, for allowing me to go off on a black risotto tangent. I really appreciate that. All right, so this next question comes from Mike on the 5-Question Friday forum. Ooh, I'm going to take a pause and answer the question. Do we have fresh prawns? Yeah, absolutely. So we have langoustines, which are kind of lobsters. We have those. And then we also have lots and lots of shrimps. Lots of shrimps. Big, small, all different kinds. Okay. So Mike asks, what should you do if you are hit whilst walking on the pavements in Zagreb by one of the increasing far too fast e-bikes and e-scooters? Great question. So these are treated just like any other traffic accident. So you would just handle this the same way you would anything else. So you stay at the scene, you contact the police, wait until they come to take a report and perform an investigation. You do have the right to ask for the personal information from anyone who is involved in the accident and anyone who saw the accident happen. You can call 112 for emergencies and 192 for the police. We do have a guide of emergency phone numbers if you would like that. We actually shared that with you here on Instagram last week. So if you go back to the grid, you can bookmark that. Or if you would like, we can send you a link to our guide, which has a PDF that you can download and just keep on your phone in case you're somewhere and you're stuck and you don't have any kind of internet and you can't access Instagram, you can't access the website. You'll always have that PDF saved on your phone so that you can see all the emergency numbers for Croatia just in case of, well, an emergency. Okay. Next question comes from Steven here on Instagram. I know that Sarah is in the middle of a very lengthy citizenship application waiting period. Truth. I'm working through the Expat in Croatia team for an application of citizenship by descent for my family and was curious if we had a similar wait ahead of our application or if the various types of application for citizenship have different waiting periods. Cheers from St. Louis, Missouri. Hello, St. Louis, Missouri. Okay, great question. Yes, I am in the midst of a very lengthy citizenship application. I am coming up on 2 years in July that I've been waiting for my citizenship application. So to answer his question, Stephen wants to know, like, if you're applying for citizenship, are the waiting times different depending on your basis for citizenship? So his family's applying based on descent. I'm applying based on poseben interes, which means special interest. So is there a difference in waiting times between those two things? Waiting times are determined by a variety of factors. Basis is only one of those factors. So I'm going to start with talking about the differences on basis, and then I'm going to tell you about the other factors. So in terms of basis, if we're just comparing descent and what I'm doing, mine would, all things being equal, would take longer because there are extra steps involved. So when you're applying based on descent, MUP, Ministry of the Interior, they are reviewing your application, seeing if you meet the requirements, and making an approval or a denial. Okay? With mine, I have to prove that I provide a benefit to the country. And as part of that, I had to select a ministry that is not the Ministry of the Interior to review my application and make their own recommendation based on that. I picked two ministries, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Tourism. So because of that, it's naturally going to take longer because there are two other ministries involved who have to evaluate my application and then make a judgment and then send it back to MUP, and then MUP is the one who finishes that processing. So yeah, those two things happening, yes, it should take longer. Now, that being said, my article, Article 12, special interest, is most commonly used for footballers and professional athletes because to play for Croatia at the national level, you have to be a Croatian citizen. So if Croatia scouts somebody around the world that is really good playing whatever sport that they play, they may offer them Croatian citizenship to be on the team. For example, last year there was an Article 12 in the news because the national basketball team scouted an American guy and they gave him citizenship to play for the national basketball team here in Croatia, and that guy had never heard of Croatia before. So, in those cases, usually their applications are fast-tracked. So in his case, it was likely the Ministry of Sport that made the decision, made the recommendation to the Ministry of the Interior that this person deserves citizenship, so it probably happened much faster. They did not have to wait 2 years like I have. So that is one difference on basis. Now, what are the other factors that impact waiting period? So one is where you apply. If you're applying through a consulate abroad, it's naturally going to take longer. That's just how it is, because when you apply at a consulate, they're not just going to turn around the next day and like send your application to Zagreb for processing. No, they batch them together and they only send that batch of applications periodically. So some consulates may do it once a month. Some may do it every 3 months. In the case of the LA consulate, never. No, I don't want to be too harsh on the LA consulate, but they are the ones that have been shown that they wait a very, very long time, like 6 months. We had one client that their application was sitting in the LA consulate for 11 months. Now, in the LA consulate's defense, and I only just found this out recently, so the LA consulate represents 19 different US states. One consulate has to take care of 19 states, and there is only one person who handles citizenship for those 19 states. So yeah, I could see why they're a little backed up. I mean, man, that's a lot of work for one person. A passport shouldn't just be handed out so easily. I'm inclined to agree with you. I am totally. And I understand why I'm being put through the hoops that I'm being put through. I am okay with that. I'm being patient. I could have applied for citizenship a lot earlier than I did, and I chose not to because I didn't feel like I was ready. I didn't feel like I had done enough to make a case that I may deserve citizenship, you know? So we'll see what happens. And I think that, you know, the reason I'm glad to be applying on the basis that I am applying for is because it means if I get approved, it's because Croatia does think that I have contributed something positive to the country, and that will make me feel very good. That is not like I was entitled to it. Like Croatia's like, yes, this is a thing that we would like to give you, and I'm glad about that. So we'll see. Who knows? We could be here a year from now, and I'll still be waiting. That's entirely possible. Oh yeah, Dean, I figured you meant for the basketballer. Yeah, don't worry. That message was received. Okay, what are the other factors that impact waiting period? So the other factor is the quality of your application. So if you don't put as much effort into your application, things are messy, things aren't done properly, it's probably going to take longer for them to process your application. However, if you put a lot of effort into preparing your application, and it is, for example, you use a lawyer to do it, because the lawyer is going to, if it's a good one who knows what they're doing, they're going to help you prepare something in the format that the ministry is looking for. Like when I put my application together, I did my like Sarah treatment to it, and I had tabs and labels and this whole thing, and my lawyer just like, nope, 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 no staples, no paper clips, nothing. She was like, this is how the ministry wants it. You're going to drive them crazy with your organization if you do this. So it's not to say that they want it disorganized. No, in Sarah's eyes, yes. But they have a very specific way that they would like to see application. So if you put the right amount of effort into it, because it is citizenship and it should be taken seriously, then it could be processed faster than if you do not put a whole lot of effort to it and you just like kind of mangle stuff. So that's another thing. Volume. There's a lot of volume right now that can delay things. And in fact, we are seeing delays pretty much across the board with citizenship right now, which should not surprise anybody, because in 2020, they overhauled the Citizenship Act. Did I just put a T at the end of citizenship? I don't know. Let me try that again. They overhauled the Citizenship Act in 2020, which opened up citizenship to many more people. So they removed the limitation on how many generations back you can go. They said that spouses who live abroad with descendant of a Croatian immigrant, they can apply too. Like there's no waiting period. You don't have to live in Croatia. And also they did away with the language test, the language, history, and culture test for people applying based on descent, which was the biggest thing that was holding a lot of diaspora back. So where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so because of that, there's been a pretty big deluge of people applying. So more volume, same number of caseworkers, you end up with longer wait times. Now, what else can impact wait time? Connections. And I would like to say that there is one law for all people in Croatia, but that is not true. That is not true. It's just a fact of life that if you have connections, then you can make things happen faster. And that's just true. And then there's just act of God. Like, that's the crazy thing about MUP. And this isn't just about citizenship. This is also about residence, is like you have these crazy, crazy long wait times for people. And then you'll have some weird anomaly where someone will get something in a super short amount of time and it just ruins it for everybody. I heard of this crazy situation out of Zadar like 2 years ago where someone got their citizenship in 2 weeks. It's like, that's not that. You're telling me they didn't have any connections? Like, how is that? How is that possible? You know, and then we've got people waiting 6+ months for residence, but then I'll hear about someone who is approved in a week. And I'm like, that's not normal. And then those people who get processed really fast, they go out on Facebook and they're like, oh, hey, it doesn't take that long. I got it really quickly. And then everyone has this expectation that it should happen really fast, when in reality, that was the anomaly. That's the exception, not the rule. So anyways, those are all the things that can impact wait time. All right, we've got a question from Marcel. Hello, Miss Sarah. How are you doing? Please, are there any possibilities for 3-year temporary residence permit for foreigners, and when can we expect that to be implemented? We've had no signs that they're going to offer a 3-year temporary residence permit. This was something that we investigated a couple of months ago because we heard a rumor about it, and we've seen no indication that they're going to allow that. Now, with a blue card permit, you can get a 2-year permit, but your employer has to meet the requirements for that, and they have to offer you a 2-year work contract for you to get a 2-year blue card work permit. So if we hear anything about a 3-year permit, we will, of course, tell everybody. Okay. Oh, just to circle back on citizenship, if you need any guides or need any help figuring out if you qualify, let us know and we'll give you all the information you need and point you in the right direction. Okay, this brings us to our lawyer tip of the week. Da, 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 da. I need to get like a little trumpet or something. I'll work on that. Okay, so this comes from our head lawyer. If you live in Croatia, you will inevitably have a dispute, either with the government or another person. In these situations, it is important to understand the value of compromise. Our court system is easily accessible and has low fees, which can give a false impression that you can have success easily too. But Croatia still battles with legal insecurity. Even the best legal expert cannot predict the outcome of litigation. If you lose based on a technicality, you may end up paying the legal fees of the opposing party, which could be quite massive. Settle out of court whenever possible. Find a middle ground, and using the court should be a last resort. That being said, you should always have a lawyer assess any type of potential legal situation before you decide how to proceed, regardless of whether or not it goes to court. Yes, absolutely. Now, I'm in a legal dispute. I have a lawsuit that's been going on for 2 years, almost 2 years, I guess. I can't tell you the details of it. I've been told by my lawyer I cannot tell the details of it. That would not be productive. But I can talk around it a little bit as it applies to this situation. So when the dispute originally happened, I didn't intend for it to be a legal dispute at all. It was like, okay, you sold me something that was not as described. It has this problem. Can you please take care of it? And then they didn't take care of it. And then I was like, okay, well, I can't continue to commit to using this thing if it's, not working as intended. So I'm just gonna not do that. But I also had to spend a bunch of money on this thing. So can you give that back to me? No. Well, I spent all this money. How about you just give me a fraction back? No. And so we proposed all these compromises, and every single one of them was shut down. I was like, okay, well, you've left me no other choice. Now I do need to go to court to try and get back, my money, which is not a small amount of money. I mean, in the end, it's about 5,000 euros. I would like to have that back. So, I've been just waiting for a court date for about 1.5 years, and I don't know, it could be another 1.5 years while I wait for a court date. I haven't even had a first hearing yet. And that's also part of it is, it's not just about the outcome insecurity of it, which we talked about in the lawyer tip. It's also like Croatia's court system is really heavily based on procedure. So it's very easy for litigation to go on until the end of time. Like my lawyer said, Sarah, you need to understand that it could take 5 or 6 years for you to get this resolved. And I was like, whatever, I'm not going anywhere. Oh, and that is something extra I wanted to mention. So because I'm a foreigner, the person on the other side, his lawyer filed a motion to get me to pay for his legal fees before we did anything because I'm a foreigner. And apparently there's some kind of clause in the law that if there's a foreigner on the other side that you can get them to pay your legal fees before anything's been decided because they can be considered a flight risk. But in my case, I had long-term residence and I own my home. And I'd already been here for 10 years. So that didn't carry any weight with the court. They were like, whatever, she's not going anywhere. We're not going to make her pay her legal fees aside from you being wrong. But, so I just want to share that kind of anecdote from my own personal life. So as to emphasize that there's always a compromise. Usually in most cases, there's a compromise that can be had, and you should always try and make a compromise before using the court system to clean something up, because it could take years. Okay. So next question, this comes from Dr. Heterica on Instagram. I'm a Croatian citizen, but my passport and osobna karta have my U.S. address on them. When I went to a local bank to open an account, I was told I need a valid reason since my residence is not listed as Croatia. What are the valid reasons a Croatian bank would let someone open up a bank account as a non-resident? Okay. This is something that's been coming up a lot lately, so I'm glad that someone asked this question. It's become a lot harder to open up a bank account here in Croatia. There was a time some years ago now, where you could stammery today. You could open up a bank account without having residence, even as a non-citizen. Like as an American, I could have just gone to a Croatian bank and opened up a bank account without having residence here. Because for a long time, when you had to show the amount of money to Croatia, to MUP, that you had enough money to support yourself, you actually had to put it in a Croatian bank. They wouldn't accept foreign bank statements. This foreign bank statement thing is a very recent occurrence. So all the times that I applied for residence, I had to put money in a Croatian bank account. They wouldn't accept a foreign one. So that was something you used to be able to do. And then they're like, okay, well, now only residents can open up bank accounts. And then now they're even becoming more strict. So this started happening a little bit more than a year ago. They said, okay, you really have to have a valid reason to open up a bank account. So they don't have a list of valid reasons. I want to say that. There are some things that I can suggest that you bring to them, but it's going to be hard. So let me talk about where we believe that this is coming from, okay? So there is an EU directive on money laundering in 2021, and that took a couple of years for Croatia to implement. So that lines up with the timing, because in my experience, they really kind of cracked down in about January 2023, all right? So we're connecting that to a decision by the governor of the National Bank of Croatia that says when opening a transaction account from paragraph 1 of this article. The credit institution is obliged to establish the identity of the user of payment services and carry out other procedures in accordance with the regulation governing the prevention of money laundering and terrorist financing. So they really want to know why you want a bank account, essentially, is the point. So what the best reason to open up a bank account here is that you're going to be taking a Croatian salary. They're not going to argue with you on that. If you have a work contract, you need to get paid into a Croatian bank account. That's the best reason. Now, this person doesn't live here, so they're not going to be collecting a Croatian salary. I'm assuming that based on context clues, okay? You could say pay bills because you own a home here, but I also have seen people get turned down for that because you don't need a bank account to pay bills in Croatia, so the bank can make that argument. I don't know what other reasons someone could have, that they would consider valid. I mean, one could be maybe that you're sending money to a relative, but again, you just send it directly to their bank account. So I would say do a deep dive on your own situation. If anybody gets into a situation where they can't open up a bank account and they try and use some reasons, I'd love to hear what those reasons were that you would propose that the bank is turning down. Or if you don't have any trouble at all as a non-resident opening up a bank account, we'd love to hear about that too. Because all the banks are different and they all require different things, but they are being more strict about it. And for the Americans out there, if you open up a bank account in Croatia, you're going to have to sit there and fill out 1 hour of IRS paperwork. It's fun. Okay. We have a guide on 7 of the biggest banks, and we kind of go into detail so you can compare and contrast and find the best one for you. I always recommend Erste. I feel like they are the most foreign-friendly bank, but they're also not in huge concentrations all over the country. Like they have a really big concentration up in the northern part, like Istria, Rijeka, Kvarner. Like there's a lot of Erste presence down there. Not as much down here as Split, but there's enough for me to accomplish the things I need to accomplish. But I really like them. That's where I bank for both my personal and my business, and I have a home loan with them. And they were really great about it. Okay, where's our next question? Yes, Doug on the 5 Question Friday forum. I have property in Podgora that I wish to ascertain what its reasonable value is so I can sell it. I find it hard to interpret the listed property on websites. Where I live in Western Australia, I have access to a property website where I can view listed and sold properties, including the sale price. Any ideas? Yeah, we don't have that in Croatia. So information about a property, you can only get access to it if you have a vested legal interest. We don't have like a main database with all of the sale prices and values of homes. That's not public information. And so yeah, it can make things a bit difficult. So there's 2 things that you can do to assess the value of your property. One is you go on Nuškalo. Nuškalo is like Croatia's Craigslist. And you can look at similar properties or properties in your area, and that will allow you to kind of ascertain the value. So that's what I did with my apartment in Split. So about 1.5 years after I bought it, I was like, I'm curious if maybe it has increased in value. So I looked at all the apartments that were for sale in my neighborhood, as well as all of the neighboring neighborhoods, to try and find places that were similar so I could get a gauge on what the value was. So that's one way to do it. But if you're in smaller areas, you may not have as many properties to compare and contrast. So you can also use an assessor. That's a court expert. You can usually get those through a real estate agency, or a property lawyer can also recommend one typically. So it's not as common to use that. It's not like part of the process, I guess you could say. So it's very often that people just figure out the price on their own, or a real estate agency makes a recommendation based on their, kind of educated analysis. When I got my home loan, Erste sent out an assessor to my apartment to see if they agreed that the value of which I was paying was the same as, what I was asking for, I guess. So banks might be able to do it too. Okay. I think that's our last question. It is. So, I don't have anything else to say. Oh yeah, it's Easter on Sunday. Who's celebrating Easter? We didn't celebrate Easter in my family in the States. Like every once in a while we go to my grandma's, but it wasn't like a big deal. So here in Croatia, I just spend it with friends. So I'm going to have some friends over for lunch. I'm cooking. I'm super excited about it. And today I made asparagus soup, which I love asparagus soup. Asparagus is in season now. And this is my first time making asparagus soup. I tasted it. It's okay. It's not quite as good as some of the asparagus soups that I've had in some of my favorite restaurants, but it'll do. It'll do. I got a recipe off of Budi Dobro. And so here in this part of Croatia, so wild asparagus is in season now, and it grows in the forest. And after you have a rain, the asparagus just kind of sprouts up overnight. And so the next morning at the market, there's tons and tons of asparagus. And I really want to do something a bit springy for Easter. And I knew that it was asparagus time. And we had a couple of big rains overnight this week. And I was like, oh my God, there's going to be asparagus. Oh, let me go grab actually some of it so I can show it to you, because it looks very different than other asparagus that I'm used to. Oh. You can stare at my bookshelf for a little while. Okay, so let me show this to you and then I'll tell you how it's different in terms of taste. Okay, these are mine while you look for something else. Let me put that down. Okay, so this is the wild asparagus. See, it's very thin. It's very, very thin and delicate. Now, it can be woodier down here than like more of a standard conventional asparagus. So that's one of the differences. So I find, unfortunately, you can't like use all of it because it's just not, it's not edible. And there's no amount of cooking it that would make it edible. But this stuff up here is so nice. And also it has this kind of like spicy garlicky flavor to it that I really love. So I have cooked with it before. This is just the first time I'm making soup with it. But what I love to do is saute it in olive oil and then put it in like a frittata with potatoes and eggs. That's really beautiful. So that's what I'm doing. I'm also going to make a lemon tart. Very excited about that. And some turkey meatballs and mash and rolls and I don't know, something else. But that's what I'm doing for Easter. Yay! Oh, and on Monday, Easter Monday, we're closed, by the way. So that day, a group of us are going to go celebrate the opening of one of the restaurants we really like. So there's a restaurant here in Split called Fig, and they're not open during winter. And so they're opening for the first time for season on Monday, and their food is excellent. I highly recommend it. Their breakfast is great. It's really, really great. Okay. So that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for being here on 5 Question Friday. And I look forward to seeing you next Friday. So have a wonderful weekend. Happy Easter. Sratan Uskrs. And vidimo se. Ciao. Bye.